Today I am going to show you how to make this beautiful, delicious loaf of cheddar cheese bread in the bread machine. So first, let's go over the ingredients you're going to need to make this bread. You're going to need 1 1/3 cup of milk, 2 tablespoons of oil, 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 3 cups of bread flour, and about 1 cup of cheddar cheese. Now here I have about 3/4 of a cup of cheddar cheese, and then here I have 1/4 of a cup of Parmesan cheese because I want to mix them together and have both, but you could use all cheddar if you wanted to. So 1 cup of shredded cheese. So the first thing we want to do is prepare our bread pan for our bread machine, and we want to do this by making sure it's clean and oiling the stem and the paddle. I've already oiled the inside of my pan, and I'm going to oil the whole of the paddle by dipping it into my oil. This will help us remove the paddle when right before the final rise. That way it hopefully won't get stuck. And we're going to start by putting in our milk. Now, if you don't want to use milk, you can use water, but the milk helps enrich the bread, giving it a softer texture and a richer flavor. Then we're going to put in our 2 tablespoons of oil. We're going to put in our 2 tablespoons of sugar, our 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, and we're going to go ahead and put in our 2 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. Then we're going to put in our 3 cups of bread flour, and you do want a good quality bread flour, not an all-purpose flour. We're not going to put our cheddar cheese in just yet. We're going to put it in the bread machine, and I'll bring the camera down and show you as I turn it on. If you are enjoying these videos, please be sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this one. Like this video to help it get promoted on YouTube, and share it with your friends. I am so glad to have you as part of our community. And I'm using the KBS bread machine. You want to make sure you lock that bread pan in. So we are going to go to menu option number 11 on the KBS bread machine, and we're first going to do about a 4-minute stir of the dough. This is the time when you want to check and see how your dough is mixing up. We're going to give that a couple of minutes, and then we'll know if we need to add any moisture or any flour to our mixture. And I just want to encourage you not to be afraid to help your bread machine along as it is mixing the dough. I know sometimes people think a bread machine is a set it and forget it type of appliance, but if you really want a good loaf of bread, then you're going to want to check and make sure all the ingredients got incorporated out of the corners. It is a machine, and sometimes it needs a little human help. We're going to let that mix for a couple of more minutes. Okay, I just wanted to let you see here, this dough ball is a tiny bit on the dry side for me, especially since we're going to be mixing in some cheese. And I'm going to add a tablespoon of water and let that mix in, and then I'll see if I need to add some more. So the dough has now incorporated the additional water that I added, and I am going to go ahead and turn it off. And if you, on the KBS machine, if you hold the start, stop, pause button for a few seconds, then it will turn it off and it will revert back to menu number 1, which is the menu option that we want to choose. But we want the loaf size of a 2-pound loaf or 1,000 grams. And I'm going to use the medium crust color. And what we also want to do at this point is I want to delay the start of this cycle. So the first time I hit the reservation, the plus button, it gives me 4 additional minutes, but I want a little bit longer than that. So if I hit it again, it gives me 10 more minutes. So that's about 14 minutes it's going to rest before the cycle actually begins. So the cycle will begin when it's at, on the settings I have here, at 3 hours and 16 minutes. So that is a 14-minute rest. Now, what I want to do is I want to set a timer for myself. When this cycle does begin, it will need for about 34 minutes. It's going to need the dough. And what I want to do is I want to add some of my cheese, saving a little bit for the top. I want to add some of my cheese when there is about 5 or 6 minutes left in the kneading. So if I know that it's going to rest for 14 minutes and it's going to knead for 33 minutes, and I want to come in at the last 5 or so, maybe 10 minutes of the kneading to add my cheese, because I want some chunks of cheese left. I don't want it to just, if I put the cheese in now, it will just knead the cheese. You won't be able to actually see the cheddar cheese. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set myself a timer for, we have 14 minutes of rest, 33 minutes of kneading. I'm going to set a timer for about 43 minutes, and at that time I will come back and I will add the cheddar cheese to our loaf. So let's go ahead and hit start, and you'll see the reservation light is flashing. It will begin counting down, and I'm going to go set myself a timer for 42 minutes so I can come back and add the cheddar cheese. My timer just went off, and I know now that it is time for me to add my cheese. So I am going to save back a little bit of cheese to put on top right before it bakes. And I'm going to go ahead and add in most of this cheese along with most of the Parmesan. And we're going to let that mix in, and then when it gets to the final rise, we will add the rest of our cheese on top before it bakes. So our dough has just finished its final knockdown, and we are going to take the paddle out. Pull it to the side here. I'm going to reshape my dough. And we're going to let this rise. In about 50 minutes, we'll come back and put our remaining cheese on top. So our bread has just now gone to the bake cycle, and I'm just going to score the top a little bit. Then I'm going to sprinkle on my cheese, my extra cheese, carefully. And now allow that to bake. It's my favorite time. Time to take the bread out of the bread machine. And it smells so good. Wow, look at that. So look at this beautiful loaf of bread. Now I'm going to let this sit here in the pan. Let me turn the bread machine off. I'm going to let this sit here in the pan for a couple of minutes to make sure it doesn't stick. You don't want to leave your bread sitting in the bread pan for very long because it'll start to sweat. But to keep it from sticking to the pan, since it has this cheese in it, I'm going to let it sit here for just a couple of minutes so it'll be easier to release from the pan. Okay, so we want to make sure this isn't stuck when we start to take it out. It seems to be fine. Look at that. Just letting it sit there in the pan for a few minutes really helps it to come right out. This is absolutely beautiful. Now for the hard part. We have to let it cool before we slice into it. So I'm just going to cover it with a tea towel. Give it time to cool, and then we'll come slice into it and see the beautiful crumb on the inside. We are ready to slice into this beautiful loaf of cheddar cheese bread. Hopefully you can see this beautiful, soft crumb. It smells so good, and you can see some of the cheddar cheese in there. So I'm just take a small piece and put some butter on it. That is fabulous. That is so delicious. I love how the cheese gets crusty on the outside. That's why I put the extra cheese on top, because it gets crunchy and crispy as it bakes. This is absolutely delicious, and you've got to try it along with this other bread.